Go ahead and get started with the meeting here. It is August 25th. It's 11:04 a.m. We've got 49 folks on, and this is Coffee with Community Services. I would say let's have our interpreters wait another 2 minutes to see if we have anyone that logs on, and at that point we will excuse them, and thank you for the fun thumbs up and confirmation interpreters. So we have a big agenda today, but first I want to go through and introduce folks. And so we have from our community services department, we have Sydney on this morning. Good morning, Sydney. And we have client services manager. We've got Kanisha on. Good morning, Kanisha. And from community services, we've got Beverly. We've got our community services manager, Michelle, who I believe is up in our Roseville office today, because once again, Alta's offices are closed, which maybe we'll give you guys an update about that as well. Let's see, who else? We've got Jolana from Community Services. Good morning. We've got our housing specialist, Rhonda, on. We've got our director of client services, Michelle Johnson, on. Good morning, Michelle. And let's see, we've got client services manager. We got Cindy Lay on. We've got Sharon Krupinski on, who's got, 7 different job titles at our regional center, but received a very nice email this morning from our manager Heidi about Sharon's support that she provides. So always thankful for Sharon. She does the deflection specialist, victim advocate. She's placement, coordinator, basically. Lots going on. So, and Heidi's right next to you on my screen. So I'll introduce Heidi from our Grass Valley office. Good morning, Heidi. Marty's going to start us off with an update, I believe, on transportation. Good morning, Marty. Let's see. We've got Christy on. Good morning, Christy from our community services. Specialized services and supports unit. My assistant Zach is on. Good morning, Zach. And Alicia, our HCBS specialist. Good morning, Alicia. Switch over to page 2. I've got Helen on, our community services manager from her unit. We've got, let's see, we got Adriana on. We've got Elia on. We've got, who else from her unit? I thought I saw someone else on there. We've got client services managers Veronica on from Woodland. Good morning. And Christina Lane from residential. And a bunch, I see a number of service coordinators that are on this morning. Good morning to everyone, staff and regional center vendors that are on. This is our weekly vendor meeting. For our agenda today, we're going to start off with a transportation update from Marty about what's going on there. We're going to go into a video that Rima presented for us. So we're going to share that video with, let's see, we're going to talk about the rate study conversion. We're going to talk about HCBS a little bit, provide updates on the, from the meetings that I attended last week at ARCA. We're going to talk about the upcoming service provider database. We're going to talk about upcoming job fairs, community resource development plan survey, what's coming up on our Alta calendar. We're going to talk about doing vendor spotlights for these meetings, and then we've got DDS directives that have come out as well. And then if case management has anything, please let us know too. We can drop it in the chat if we want to add that in there. Helen, you've got new staff though, right?
Yes, I do. Thank you, John. Sydney Rupert is our new CSS specialist. She is going to be handling the financial management services for SDP, participant directed services, and the SDS. So I'll let Sydney introduce herself and give us a little bit of her background. Sydney.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Helen. I am just starting in the community services department, and I have worked with I have worked in a boarding care previously, and I'm finishing up my master's at UC Davis in community development, and I look forward to working with everyone.
Awesome, welcome. All right, and I'm told we did our other introductions of new staff last week. Sorry I missed everyone. I was at the Association of Regional Center Agencies. They had their executive directors meeting and their board of directors meeting. And then I also presented at a conference last week down in beautiful Brea, California. So I'll talk with you a little bit about that conference as well. But I do want to run it over. Marty's a very busy person, and I asked if Marty could join us at the beginning of the meeting. So Marty, can I throw it over to you to give us kind of an update on where we're at as of August 25th with our transition to the transportation broker.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Hi, everybody. I'm Marty Eason, Transportation Coordinator. Status right now with our transition to the R&D Transportation Service Broker. R&D did do a presentation for all of our management just this last Wednesday in office, in person. And that was nice, just as an introduction. Right now, currently, we are working on getting out transportation contract addendums, which will be adding the transportation broker R&D to everyone's existing contracts. We will be sending out new contracts to our 895 service code vendors. So those will be coming shortly. We do have to make some revisions on that. R&D, I do want to mention R&D did send out a recent reminder on August 22nd. It's their second request to all of our transportation providers to please submit their MS form, which has all of their vendor information and also their fleet vehicle fleet list. Both of those items that will be through the Microsoft SharePoint. It's a link. Oh, yeah, a link that that they sent out. If anyone does need that link, I can forward it to them again. This will directly upload their information into the SharePoint, and R&D, once they receive that, they will be reaching out to each provider. Once they have both of those documents, they'll be reaching out to each provider to schedule a meeting with them individually. And they'll be reviewing POS authorizations, answering questions, just a good time for you to meet individually with them. What is next? Oh, we do need the information submitted to R&D by next Thursday. They provided a due date of August 31st, which is next Thursday. And they need this. It's very important because this next month, as we get into September, they're going to be meeting with each vendor, each transportation vendor. So as you may be aware, this will take some time, but they need to place all of that information that is submitted into their system so they can build their GIS system. And this is what is necessary to, as of October 1st, to begin to address all of our transportation service requests. So the information has to be submitted into their system. So they're they really need to have that information sooner than later. We don't want to be receiving that September 30th and expect the referrals and such to be sent over. They need time to meet with you all and get that into their system. I have been receiving, since I sent an email out yesterday, I have been receiving a lot of requests from transportation vendors that they would like to have a meeting to discuss the addendum. And so we're working on that right now. So hopefully we'll have something scheduled pretty quick just to answer additional questions about it. And that's about it. So I am, working on that right now. So that's pretty much the update. I'll send it back over to John.
Thank you very much, Marty. I would like to be very open with our service providers and let them know kind of what's going on, in this meeting in real time. And so we did have a very good discussion yesterday afternoon regarding trends that we are encountering in our individual discussions talking to transportation providers. And one of the things, and Helen's, certainly familiar with this as well, is, and Damien too, our specialist, is that there's a very large concern that after we get R&D in essence on and participating in the scheduling and activities for our transportation providers, that they're going to be suggesting and ACRC will be implementing, in essence, more restrictive requirements in order to provide closed transportation. So things like, higher insurance coverages, things like vehicle, certain vehicle mileage, restrictions and things like that. things that have happened at other regional centers. Other regional centers have brought on a transportation broker and then have adopted, some of those recommendations that have been made. Ultimately, for a transportation broker, they can make recommendations to the regional center just like our clinical department makes recommendations to the regional center when it comes to vendorizations and the way we do things. But at the end of the day, ultimately, we have to do what is in line with what statute and regulations say, and also what the needs of our agency are and the needs of our client. We are not in a position as a regional center to do any further restrictions as it relates to getting into the transportation business. We have such a level of scarcity right now for our services. We have so many individuals that are underserved. And we know this because we even authorized people to use Uber and Lyft to get places because of the challenges that we've been facing. And so I think one of the things that we've been expressing to service providers, and this would be for all the service providers, is that we are still going to be maintaining this opportunity every single week for you to be able to communicate with us if we run into these challenges. And for transportation specifically, we will continue to have ongoing, transportation specific meetings too, as we continue to do this rollout. But I just want to share that you still have a main line to the regional center as it relates to your vendorization. You are not vendored through R&D when you work with the regional center, which means if there are things that come up, how you can reach out to me, how our director of client services and talk about the impact to clients. Like, you have that ability to be able to do that. And we've certainly hoped that we've empowered you to do that. And we offer opportunities for you to do that by making ourselves and most of our staff available here every single week. And so we rely on that to help keep us, honest as well on things and making sure that we're being very collaborative with you as service providers. And so the R&D transition is going to be a challenge. We still have to really work with the care homes and with the day program providers related to this, because we're really just right now focusing on our closed transportation providers that we have. So again, we're looking forward to doing more of these meetings and having these discussions and really talking about what the concerns are that the service providers have as it relates to this, because we want to ensure that we're implementing this in a way where we can really preserve what we have as a transportation service system, and then even expand it, because we have to expand it with all of the increased clients that we have. So Marty has really been working hard on this, and with Damien and with Christina, I know our temp, whereas they were all working on contracts yesterday. So thank you, Marty, so much for really being the lead on this transition as well. We will be doing more vendor specific meetings, specifically with R&D too. Again, want to do that big introduction with our managers, which is what we just did. And then we'll be doing, we'll even bring, our R&D here to Coffee with Community Services, where we can do kind of a Q&A with a broader group of providers. And, we've got some staff on as well. All right. Helen, anything else about transportation that we missed, other than I know that we're also working on new vendorizations right now and bringing on, new providers too?
Nothing, John. That's the update right now.
Awesome.
Right.
All right. Thank you very much. And again, and for all of you transportation providers, we appreciate the patience, and we will look forward to setting up these meetings where we can sit down with you and talk about the specific concerns. And I would just want to make it very clear that will be built into, your concerns, our relationship with R&D and our functioning with them. It is important to us to ensure that we've addressed all of these things. So we can't address everything right now because it hasn't started yet. But as we go through this process, just know that we're going to continue to be committed to making ourselves available to address any issues that come up. All right, I want to throw it to Michelle, who's really excited about practicing sharing a YouTube video.
Hi, everyone. So I know that I'm not sure if all of you know, but Rima Cornish has actually departed from our agency. She will be working with us monthly to collaborate on some special projects that we're working on, and also support case management a little bit during this transition. But she was able to leave us a recording of the sign of the day and the DEF 101. So I wanted to share that. Give me 1 minute, because I want to make sure that I get it set up. John, can you see that?
Looks perfect.
Okay, So I'm going to attempt to play and mute myself. We'll see, because I just don't want an echo.
Using these handshapes in this motion.
Perfect.
Reading. This is the sign for reading. Using these handshapes. Book. Storytelling. Storytelling. ASL, storytelling. Parents. Make sure your thumb is on your chin and the middle of your forehead. Parents. Using these handshapes on both hands in a circular motion. Family. Family. I shared a link with you all titled Reading SOS Help. Parents have asked, how do I read to my deaf child? In this video, it explains different examples on different strategies to read to your deaf child. I also attached another link titled 15 Principles to Read to Deaf Children. These principles will help hearing parents gain an understanding that reading to deaf children has its own unique process. Deaf children are visual learners. How they acquire words and language isn't reliant on their hearing, but on their sight. So there are 2 videos, and there's also a document that you can read through as well. Some Deaf 101 I wanted to discuss with you. The mind and the plasticity of a mind is different compared to a baby and an adult. When a deaf child is a baby, learning and acquiring information in that critical period is so important. If a child misses out on that critical period, this does have a huge impact on their mind's development and development of language, and can cause delays. I have an article here that I'm going to explain a quote from. The quote says, children who have cochlear implants, hearing aids, or who may hear a little bit rely completely on their speech, but they never learn how to hear. Therefore, their language is delayed. They should reframe this and focus on language development. In the field, doctors, audiologists, and speech therapists solely focus on speech, but they forget that the plasticity of their mind is so critical in the early stages of that child's life. When that child is older, the plasticity of their mind and that critical period has closed. Therefore, it causes delays and a slower learning period for language. The brain doesn't discriminate. ASL is a language. They can learn ASL in parallel with speech. But if speech isn't working for the child, they have ASL and they're able to grow from there. Therefore, the brain is not delayed with language acquisition.
Okay, perfect. So just a little bit, I know Rima was in that mindset, so she has left us to be a preschool teacher. So we will be asking her to do this at least once a month so we can share. Thanks, John.
It was pretty sad having to say bye to Rima yesterday, and I certainly appreciate how much she has shared with us over her time that's been here. It is, I think, a rarity when you can get someone that is so open to do this type of education for everyone, and just does it so well. Like I want to encourage all of you to hire a person that is deaf for your agencies. I think there's never a right time to do this. It is, certainly Michelle has had to learn a lot in order to be the manager, but and there's a lot of supports that we had to and change things. But for us and for me, it has really opened up my mind about different opportunities for development and also just a sensitivity to my employees. So all that being said, I want to encourage folks. That's one of the reasons why we've done this for the last year, I think, is to really get folks in the mindset of trying to serve our individuals that are deaf and have lower hearing levels. So awesome. Thank you very much. Michelle, do you mind if we jump over to the vendor spotlight idea?
Yeah. So in our vendor forum we had, and in a couple other meetings, we've had some new vendors kind of share and update other vendors about their services and their successes and those kind of things. And we've had a lot of positive feedback. So we wanted to bring the vendor spotlight to Coffee with Community Services. Just a 2-minute summary of your services, what you offer, maybe share some successes, some general resources in the area, and just collaborate with the vendors. So I'll put my email in the chat. If you guys are interested in doing that, just email me and we'll get you on the rotation. And I will make sure to let you know a week in advance that it will be your turn for the next one.
So that's the difference between Michelle and I. She'll let you know in advance whether or not you have to talk during Coffee with Community Services. I really thought that was a great idea. Michelle came over right after our our day program and employment vendor forum yesterday and said, oh, it'd be great to do that type of spotlight at Coffee with Community Services regularly. And so there's so many service providers that come on here. And then we also have our new community services specialists, and we have new managers and sometimes new service coordinators that will log into the meeting as well. And so it's just a great opportunity, I think, for us to, certainly be able to meet our new community services specialists when they get hired, but being able to meet our new vendors and also our longstanding vendors that we have as well, to be able to do that. So again, there's certainly at the provider advisory committee, there's opportunities like that to be able to be spotlighted, but this is a much larger group of vendors. So awesome. Thank you very much, Michelle. And let's see, I wanted to discuss a few different things related to some meetings that I had over the last few weeks. So as it relates to HCBS, and I think we've shared about this previously, but in essence, the state is continuing to wait for guidance from the Department of Development of Services is waiting for guidance from the feds as it relates to what specifically we are going to need to make a determination that the service providers are in compliance with HCBS. Many of you remember the big push. I believe it's around 460 or so service providers that are required to do this, and we do add new ones every day because we're always vendoring new people. But we're going to be required to ensure that everyone is compliant with HCBS. However, we just don't know what documentation is going to be needed to verify that, and the state doesn't know either. They're waiting on the feds for the answers. So we are hoping that in the next couple months we will have that information. We've brought on another HCBS specialist that you guys met, I think, last week as well. And we may be bringing on even another one, but we still don't know exactly what those activities are. Though, if it's anything like the activities that we had earlier for the previous deadline, it is going to be very intensive workload on our staff in order to do this. So that is what we are waiting for. And we are hoping, I will say, the department has not made it a secret that they are interested in possibly looking at another extension beyond the June 30th deadline of this year to have this all done. Because when they asked for the June 30th extension previously, that was in October of last year. And so things have, they were hoping they would get a response back from them and some clear guidance before June, and that still hasn't happened. And so the department is sensitive to the fact that the regional centers are going to have a huge lift to do this before the end of the year. So we certainly know that guidance for the HCBS positions should be out by the end of September, but I mean, we need to know some of this stuff like ASAP. So it's very concerning. We've got staff ready to go. We've got an updated Title 17 form that, covers a bunch of these different things, but we don't know what else they're going to ask us for. So that's a concern. Eric, yeah, your hand's up. Go ahead, please.
Something I was curious about. Has there been talk about doing this on a per client basis versus a vendor basis? I mean, HCBS is about whether an individual person in a setting is receiving services that are compliant. So has there been any talk about incorporating this into IPP processes and reviews and doing it more on an individual level than going through these big group settings, which also doesn't seem to be in line with HCBS ideas?
I will tell you at a statewide level, and that's a very good point. So Alicia and I were in the last HCBS evaluators meeting. In that meeting, we learned that Central Valley Regional Center is testing that. And so let me throw it over to Alicia because I asked her to follow up a little bit on it.
All right, so while our first review was more policy driven, making sure that vendors have policies in line with HCBS, we do know that HCBS is sort of written into the law that it's based on individual experiences rather than like a physical location of a place. So what it looks like most regional centers who have already started are doing is they are looking at that program design to make sure those policies are in place. They're doing an IPP review to make sure that it's person-centered, that there's no modifications in place, and if there are, that the modification process was followed. There's a physical plant component to the care homes where we have to make sure that individuals have like locks on their doors, that bathroom doors lock at facilities, and then the biggest piece of determining compliance in person will be client interviews done by the HCBS team. So we are aiming to be very client focused in these assessments. It's going to be less about looking through all your documentation like a Title 17 is, or the annual reviews that Scott and the other QAs do. And it's going to be more person-centered reviews. And we have very specific questions to ask clients about their experience, attending the program, where they get to go. Do they like the places that they're able to visit in the community? Are they able, to do the things that they want to do in their life? So the department has they did say that because we only assess HCBS settings that are congregate disability specific settings, so it doesn't apply to all of our vendors. Right now we've got about 500 vendors. It will be ticked off on a vendor to vendor basis. Like, yes, we've assessed that this vendor is compliant, but that will be based on individual experiences of individuals who attend your program.
Real quickly about the template out of Central Valley Regional Center for the IPPs. Can you update on that, Alicia?
I requested it, and Kendra said that she was going to see if she could get it from someone higher up, but they did provide me all of their templates for their assessments that they're doing now, just not the IPP template. And we have updated some language in the IPP. We're waiting for that to roll out. That includes HCBS type things and modification processes lined out as well. And we're also looking at staff trainings to make sure that on our end, because the HCBS evaluation is on our end as well when it comes to how the IPPs are written and whether it's person-centered or not.
Yes, it sounds like they've developed a template there that is basically a person-centered interview. And kind of comes out looking like an IPP, and it also meets the federal requirements from their Medicaid waiver folks. They've reviewed it all. So always try to find out what other people are piloting and doing at other regional centers. Michelle and Jennifer and the AEDs and I have certainly talked about the IPP template and the format that we have now, and some of the challenges, because you cannot pull any data at all from the thousands of IPPs that we have because of the way that they are put together. And so certainly room for improvement, I think, in the future as it relates to IPP format for us too. I don't think there's anything else about HCBS. Oh, let's see. Will HCBS changes affect transportation? Alicia's shaking her head.
No, HCBS is for congregate disability specific settings. So it won't affect transportation. We're under no obligation to assess transportation. It doesn't fall under that waiver stuff. Neither do, I should mention, skilled nursing facilities, ICFs, what else? SLS is a one-on-one service, so that doesn't fall under There's a lot of our service codes that don't fall under HCBS regulations. Not that we don't have other ways to assess those services, but it just doesn't fall into those federal guidelines.
Yeah, there's about 500 more of you guys. So about 500 that are in it, I think, and about 500 that are out of it, as far as the number of vendors we have. Which, bear that in mind, that's a lot. We have a lot of service providers at our regional center these days, certainly. Right. I want to discuss the rate study conversion, or what we're calling the service code conversion. Discussed a little bit of this during the day program vendor forum yesterday. So again, one of the things that the regional center is waiting for is specific information as it relates to the conversion of service codes. So there's in some services, we're looking at transitioning from daily rates to hourly rates. In some situations, like some certain day programs, we might be changing the type of service code for the day program that an individual is in as well. We know that the state has been working on what they're calling a crosswalk document that basically has, here's what these service codes are currently, like for example, service code 055, and here is what the rate study, possible codes you could put that under. And so, if it's a community-based day program, with behavioral supports or something like that, you could move that under there. If you move that under there and we do that transition, that means that in the future, you are then subject to any rate increases that get applied to any of the vendors. If you decide instead you want to stay in the 055 service code, our understanding is that that'll be fine. You can do that. But in the future, when they go to raise rates, your rate will not go up because you are not part of the rate study. And so that is where we're at right now, is looking at all the service codes that need to be transitioned. But then there's also additional guidance that might be needed. And luckily, the directors of client services were at the same meeting that I was, because there may be a necessity to do some IPP language changes if we have a significant service change that goes on. What we're hoping for is some really clear guidance from the department on how we can do this as easily as possible while it's still acceptable for like audit purposes and everything else. So that's a lot of guidance that we're waiting to look for. I will be honest with you, I did not think about the planning team implications per se of switching the service codes and the idea of having meetings possibly, but that could be a workload issue significantly as we look at trying to standardize all of these service codes. And again, for everyone's understanding, the idea is that by June of 2024 here, that we've got all of the service codes all on the similar type of rate and being able to therefore be able to get any future rate increases. We've already got some vendors that don't need to transition because we're doing some some for folks. But there will be hundreds of service providers that are going to need to do these transitions. And many of you that did it previously, when we were calculating what kind of rate increases you should get based off of the components of your program a couple years ago, that it's going to be very similar to that process, very time intensive. So the department has told us that, I will say, we have really requested the department to get us this information before in the month of September. We really need to get information as soon as possible. There needs to be opportunities for the service providers to have public comment and stakeholder comment. That's one thing that they shared that they will be doing, is offering opportunities for stakeholder comments on this based off of different service codes. But for example, some of them, like infant development programs and transportation, they have not nailed down exactly what that rate is going to be yet, because they've heard so much about the fact that what has been proposed through the rate study is not going to work out for huge swaths of our vendors. And for transportation, for us, I believe every one of our vendors would be looking at a significant decrease in their billing for doing the exact same amount of work. And the fact for transportation that they are only offering flat rates regardless of distance really disincentivizes people to serve some folks that might be in more of our outlying areas, which is tough when you've got 10 very large geographic area with 10 counties like we do. So as soon as we have rate study information and conversion, we're going to start talking about it in this meeting. We're going to start talking about it after all of the DDS meetings. You know, we'll offer opportunities just as regional center to meet with you guys and talk about it. Eric, yeah, go ahead, please.
Just in addition to like the crosswalk, there's some service codes that we're probably waiting regulation changes too, in terms of what you need to do to qualify at that rate, which that hasn't been done yet. So it's possible some of our services are being, well, it's happened where some of our services are being walked into a rate that then is eventually going to need some legislative changes to Title 17 or which would may change or increase your requirements or decrease your requirements, probably increase your requirements to that. So that's something that is also in it. Something needs to be kept in mind. Are those conversations happening too?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly there is those discussions that are happening, and I know, you know, for example, talking about the behavior management community-based, talking about some of the requirements for a registered behavioral technician, for a certified nursing assistant. I know that the department's looking at that as well because of the challenges that providers have brought up in being able to acquire these positions. And so I know that's being taken. I mean, I consulted with folks about it. So I know it's being very much taken into consideration as whether or not those would be appropriate. I believe that there has been some proposed alternative language that would require some, I would think, legislative action to change those requirements that they're looking at putting in there. But anyways, more to come on that. But just letting folks know that, you know, we're right now we're still looking at June of 2024. So I mean, we're the later and later that we get the guidance on the crosswalk, the more challenging it's going to be. We've got to do all these activities through accounting as well, right? So it's not just the community services department and the back and forth with service providers, but it's also dealing with the accounting department and making sure that they have the capacity to put in all the updates too. Tied to this, and I want to talk about it because we discussed it yesterday as well, is on Friday, I had an opportunity to speak at the sixbeds.org annual conference in beautiful Brea, California, in Orange County. It was huge. I don't know how many people, there must have been about 150 people in the room. And these are, I would say about half of them or more are residential service providers for regional centers, either Northern California or Southern California. But the other ones are not. They're, you know, they're ARF providers or ICF providers, but they don't serve people with developmental disabilities. And the Department of Developmental Services presented, and as did I, and we kind of coordinated our presentations, and it was great because the department shared something that's very important to me, which is about information about our aging population of clients. They've got some new statistics that they've put together about you know, some of the needs. So they talked about the aging demographics, and I talked about the explosion of autism diagnosis with our clients, and in the idea of, you know, what kind of residential homes is Christina Lane going to need 5-10 years from now, right? For all of the individuals that are coming through with autism diagnosis, right? Autism diagnosis of 134%, something to that effect. So we coordinated our discussion about that. And then we also talked about the service provider database, which I will get into. I also presented on the modification process. And Alicia, I wonder if you would be willing, if you're still on here, I think you are somewhere. Yes, you are. Alicia, I wonder if you would be willing to go over, because the discussion, the slides that you put together about how to do the modification process and in an HCBS kind of context, I think is great for all service providers. And so Michelle Duchesne, let's remember that we want to get that on our calendar for Coffee with Community Services, for her to do that presentation about the modification requests for all of service providers, because it crosses so many different service provider categories. And it's all about making sure that you have taken the appropriate steps, that you got the appropriate documentation. So I did that part of the presentation as well with the providers so that they understood about ensuring that they are fully implementing their services in an HCBS, you know, aligned way. The department, though, presented on the service provider database, and I want to talk about that in the context of the 90-10 issue and the incentive payments that are supposed to be tied to the completion of the rate study. There's been a group of individuals that have been working for at least 7 months or 6 months or so on how we can possibly have the incentive piece figured out by the end of June of 2024. so that service providers can get the full amount of the rate increases that have been put in, and the full amount of their rate. What the department has determined, and this is would not be too strange if you've been following Assembly Bill 1147, there's discussion in there about having a statewide database of service providers. So the Department of Developmental Services is developing a statewide database of service providers. And that statewide database is the plan is for it to come online January 1st. And the activity for service providers related, left my email open here. The activity related to service providers and how it ties to the incentive payment is that there's going to be a kind of like an attestation process where you will go into the service provider directory to ensure that everything is in there correctly. And then I used this example yesterday. If you are someone like Eric and you've got multiple vendorizations, a number of you have multiple vendorizations, just making sure that we've got those linked together as well. I believe that is the very low threshold that they are setting for some of the incentive payment percentage. I don't know if it's the full 10%, but that is one of the activities. There may be additional activities in the future that they build into this, but right now they want to ensure that folks get logged in. What I will do is, as we get more information about this, I'll actually invite DDS to come on here and talk about the service provider database, because they have future plans for us to do more with that database, to even include things like an outward facing portal for service providers. I personally would love it when you guys have to do your biennials, that you get just a little email alert from the database, and then you have a place where you can just upload your documents real easily. I could save a whole staff person's amount of time just by doing something like that. So the state has got a multiple rollout of this. This is not a CERMS project per se. This will be preceding the consumer electronic records management system that the state is developing, that we believe we're going to be seeing around 2026. Again, the goal for the rollout of this would be January 1. The hope is that maybe we can have a deadline of March 30th or so for you all to get in there. And then, but that allows us to have verified that you've done your incentive activity in advance of you supposed to get your incentive payments on July 1. Your rate's supposed to flip over, and it's supposed to include that. So I think that's the rollout timeframe that they're looking at right now. Again, this was said to a very large room of residential service providers during a conference that I was at last week by DDS. So I certainly feel comfortable sharing it here. But as we have more information about that, the concern is, and as I just saw Rowena pop up, another residential manager, is that, and Heidi might have had it happen to her too, but when that client just shows up at the door of the care home up in, and says, I'm going to move in today, and they're from Orange County or something like that, and we've had that happen, right? And in our homes, because of people looking at our listings that we have. And so I know that might be some type of concern. Our process for vendorization right now is still the same, and our process for asking permission from other regional centers to place into their homes and utilize their services is still the same as well. And when we have issues with that, we've got our associate directors, we've got Michelle Johnson that can be involved whenever we've got any of those issues about our clients that need to use out of area services. But we hate the drop-offs, though. That is not a fun experience for Alta staff, and certainly not for the care home operators at all. Service provider database, as I say, more information to follow as soon as we have that. We don't have Carly here today, but Carly has got to be one of the most hardest working people at our regional center, because I personally assign her, I feel like, a new project every single week. She is now coordinating a job fair at Sierra College on November 7th. You are all invited. This is going to be a Disability Industry Career Expo DSP collaborative activity. We're putting a flyer together for it. We are working on getting some funding together to do another ad buy on KCRA. We need I'm going to find $6,000 more somehow, so that we can afford to do another ad buy with just the HCBS funds that we have. Really would love to see a huge turnout of our service providers at a job fair at one of our local community colleges. I think we're just calling them colleges nowadays, but But again, if we could do something like this at Sierra College, in just being able to, not only try to get some people that get hired, but also get some visibility to the developmental disability services system on campus. And I feel like being able to draw from the junior college crowd might be really beneficial for a lot of different service providers. So more information to come on that. Just save the date for yourselves that it's going to be November 7th. It's going to be at the Sierra College main campus in their cafeteria. And we'll do like we did previously. We'll do signups and everything else. We got a lot of feedback from folks that they wanted to see something in Placer County. And Sierra College is, so far up there that, we can pull people down, hopefully from Nevada County as well. So any questions about the Sierra College job fair? No? Okay. Then I have a couple more things that Carly's working on, and I want to touch on those too. So we're looking at doing another micro enterprise fair at our agency. And Michelle, do you know if we've landed on a date yet for the micro enterprise fair?
Yeah, I believe it's December 5th.
December 5th. So once again, for your holiday shopping, be like me, buy those little painted ornaments. They make fantastic gifts. Or those little press-on nails or whatever those were, the nail paint that you don't really have to paint, you just stick on. That lady apparently had some screaming prices on her stuff. So hopefully she comes back again too. I thought it was we did not have it as full as we've had it in the past this last time, but knowing that it's going to be December 5th, and hopefully we will be completely safe and comfortable walking around the Harvard office, not being attacked by fleas on maybe do they go dormant in the winter, hopefully. Some of you know, if you're at Alta, you'll notice that not one of us is in the Harvard office today, because we have once again closed the building because we're doing another spray, and we're going to be working on trying to hopefully invite our staff back mid next week or so, maybe Wednesday, I believe is kind of the plan. And so anyways, December 5th, that is going to be an awesome one. Carly's working on it, micro enterprise fair, and we also want to be doing another day in employment vendor fair as well. And the day in employment vendor fair, I believe she's going to look at mid-October possibly for that one. But we have so many new service coordinators. We've got a bunch of new service providers, and we want to have an opportunity to get you guys in our building, being able to meet a bunch of our staff. And so we will share the information about that too. So again, Carly's got a bunch of these things that she is planning right now. Additionally, yesterday had an opportunity to talk to day and employment providers related to the Sierra College employment grant that we have. The Sierra College employment grant is looking at increasing outcomes for individuals with developmental disabilities and getting into the community college system. It's aimed at doing system change by making recommendations to the chancellor's offices, to education about how to best do that transition. With that, they are looking at meeting with providers that serve Placer County, Sacramento County, and Nevada County, specifically to talk about employment issues. Now, it may not just be day and employment providers that are the ones that might be part of that focus group. And with that, if there is a client services manager that is interested in maybe speaking to that as well, this is Dr. Lou Vizmara, who is kind of be leading, I think, the focus group, and then the other folks from Sierra College as well. So if you are interested in that, I'll have Michelle drop Carly's email in the chat. If you are a service provider and you are interested in being part of the Sierra College focus group, then please shoot an email over to Carly saying that. So again, the Sierra College focus group, and that's with Dr. Lou Vizmara. Jordan, what is the CRDP survey, and when are we going to try to get it out?
So every year, the regional centers develop a community resource development plan. And in order to do that, we get feedback from all of our stakeholders regarding any unmet needs that our clients might have in regards to service area, whether that's day program, residential, you name it, right? Physical therapy, occupational therapy, any of those things. So every fall we submit we send out a survey to all of our stakeholders to get feedback. That includes case management, right? Clients, care providers, and any other stakeholders that are wanting to provide feedback. We take that information and then analyze that and then use that data to help determine which resources that we want to develop in this fiscal year. And then we would provide a proposed project list to Department of Developmental Services, indicating what services we were hoping to get startup funds for and use for this year's development plan in order to help address those unmet needs. So we hope to have that survey out by probably mid-September, no later than the end of September. So I can continue to give you guys updates here at Coffee too. And we'll of course send out a big mail notification, right? We'll send it out to everybody. So thanks, John.
So far, thank you very much, Jordan. So far, what have we discussed? We have discussed the possibility of doing accessory dwelling units.
Yes.
And being able to, we've had Brilliant Corners conduct an evaluation of our existing properties. They've identified 3 possible properties that they think are most appropriate for us to request funding to build accessory dwelling units on the properties of those licensed either enhanced behavioral support homes. I think they're all enhanced behavioral support homes actually, that they're looking at doing that with. And with that would allow us to house, probably 2, maybe possibly 3 individuals that are in supported living, and being able to offer an opportunity for really affordable housing for them. And again, we're talking about putting guardrails in, making sure, that we don't necessarily have the same provider that is running the home being the one that's providing the support to the individuals that are in supported living, because we don't want them to feel like they're forced to have those, support people in their homes, right? I see Max shaking the head there, right, Max? I mean, we want to make sure that we've got that choice for clients. And so, yeah, absolutely. So we'll see if, I would not mind asking for them to do 2 of them. I would be happy if they just gave us 1, but anyway, we have SLS agencies out there that, and though they have staffing challenges, one of the biggest challenges is still trying to get that home for people to move into. So the more we can build up our stock of homes, I think for the SLS crowd, because we've already seen, I think we've got 650 clients now in supported living, and it's just going to keep going and going as people want more individualized supports. So that's a big one for us. I want to mention another thing that I've been talking about, which is an FMS agency. I am interested in us doing a request for proposal so that we can get more FMSs to be able to support a number of our different activities. One is there's going to be an expansion of participant-directed services that is going to go on for social recreation. And with that, we are going to need to utilize FMSs to be able to process these. Additionally, when it comes to the self-determination program, as that expands, and also things like our competitive integrated employment payments and our paid internship payments, that all runs through the same FMS companies. And I know they have different divisions that deal with these different things, but at the end of the day, like every one of our client services managers, and now I know it's, kind of shrinked down at Alta because we've got our specialized unit, but they're really dealing with the concerns with the FMSs. And so I think it's very important that we think about doing that. I think it will open up more opportunities for individualized services for our clients, more timely services. So that is a big one that we're looking at too. And I'm trying to think, Jordan, if there's another one that we have to, I will just say, I am looking at doing another housing proposal. I think between Rhonda and I, between now and the next couple months, we can certainly put something together. We've got a exciting meeting with Volunteers of America coming up, I believe, so that we can look at one of their projects that's right near our office, actually, that they're looking at doing. So survey will go out September-ish, and we'll look forward to a lot of feedback from folks.
Yep.
All right. And let's see here. I encourage folks to go to Alta's calendar. I'm going to drop in the chat the most important thing that I think is in the calendar, which is we have our client advisory committee meet and greet. I saw Michelle Ramirez on here. She remembers when we used to go out to Sonoma Developmental Center every year and go meet with the clients out there. And the Client Advisory Committee really liked doing those types of meet and greets out at Sonoma. And so they, we don't have Sonoma anymore, but they want to host one at our office. And so if you look in the chat, I dropped the flyer. It's on September 12th. If you have clients that you think might be interested in attending that, please encourage them to do so. They don't have to become members of the Client Advisory Committee to meet the members of the Client Advisory Committee. So just want to put a little bug in your ear that we want to encourage people to attend that. And there's a registration that you can put on there as well. So there'll be refreshments. And oh, nice. We got a vendor spotlight sign up for 9/8. And there's a reason why we don't have any signups for next week, which is we're going to be doing a 4-day weekend. We are not going to be having coffee with community services. So we will send out a message to every subscriber on MailChimp. Zach, please don't let me forget to do that. That we will be canceling coffee with community services for next Friday. I hope everyone enjoys that weekend. And
John,
let's
just
see.
to share, it'll be
Go ahead.
CBEM. CBEM will do the first spotlight on you.
Oh, awesome. Very timely. Good, because we've got a good update that we've done with CBEM with our 637 that's been approved, right, Jordan?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so maybe we'll tie that all together during the spotlight and give them an update on all
That
the
sounds
work
great.
all the work that you guys did to get CBEM updated.
Astounding. Sounds good.
Right on. All right, thank you very much, folks. And we will look forward to talking to folks in 2 weeks. Again, we will not be here next week. If you need anything, please do not hesitate to reach out to your specialist. You're welcome to reach out to their manager or me if needed as well. All right, thank you all very much. Have a great weekend. Take care.